So many of you must have been seeing the trends going around in Nigerian politics, whereby so many southern elites, intellectuals, and politicians have been talking about the constitutional amendment. This is not a mistake, but a strategy from the Tinubu camp. Tinubu has seen that he has lost everything possible from the north. He understands that the north today are ready to queue behind Pedro Obi, just they are waiting for that signal, that last confirmation bell, ring bell from Atiku, and of course the North will queue behind a Peter Obi. Don't be deceived when they tell you that the Northerners do not trust the Igbos, that the Hausa Fulanis can never work with the Igbos. Shall I remind you, the First Republic, the first people who the Northerners had allied with were the Southeasterners. Yes, I understand there were disagreements along the way. I understand there were conflict, but have we not had conflict among the North and the Yorubas? Of course we've had, and the Yorubas will always do everything to safeguard, to keep that relationship between the North and the South. In the South, there's always a constant conflict between the Southwest and the Southeast. This is why you see that the North are presumably those who call the shot in the Nigerian politics. Tinubu is using the constitutional amendment to checkmate the North. He's using the constitutional amendment to cause crisis amongst the northern oligarchs. And he's using that constitutional amendment to try and buy the sentiment and support of the South. If tomorrow, if there is a bill that is passed that there should be resource control, and if he passes that bill towards the end of 2026 into 2027, that we know that the election is just by the corner. I mean, the South will put their differences aside and vote him. I can categorically tell you that the Igbos will vote him. I can categorically tell you that the Middle Beltans will vote him. Amongst the constitutional amendment is the Nigerian police reform. There is a conversation going around that there should be an establishment of state policing. I made a content earlier. I said Tinubu happens right now since 1999 to be one of the presidents that has the latitude to carry out what we call a peaceful constitutional change without the North or without the country going into anarchy. Why? Tinubu has everybody both, unless of course we the people who are in the obedient camp. But of course, Tinubu can do so many things that will buy us off. Let me tell you, there are so many obedients, just like myself, that we want what we call state police. So many of us, we want what is called referendum. Okay, let's say for instance, the referendum is too much to get. Let's say the referendum is too much to get, but let's talk about what it is called fiscal federalism. That means bamboo will stop to eat, and monkey go stop to work, whereby bamboo go to chop. It is what you do, you earn, pay as you earn as you work in a situation. But you see, why I have so much confidence that the argument, the conversations recently, because I am now seeing majority of the southern governors bringing these conversations to the fore. So many southern governors, just recently Peter Umba, I'm going to show you the video now. Peter Umba also started talking about the constitutional amendment. What's it called? Ojus Okalu as well. We saw a video when Ojus Okalu and what's it called? The Senate President Akpabio, haven't taken some shots of alcohol about this same constitutional amendment conversation, and they now what? They said we must use the constitutional amendment to checkmate the North. And we know how much the Northerners do not like to have conversations about constitutional reform. When it comes to one of the topics that scare them the most, a topic that send them to the hell, is when any Southern president is there and it begins to bring what we call constitutional amendment. I want to repeat again. Tinubu has that power, that capacity to actually decimate what we call the North, and of course, to balkanize the Peter Obi's camp. If Tinubu begins to talk about this, because they are talking about it, it is not if They are already talking about it. They are already using it for political gains. People are now talking about it left, right, center. Constitutional amendment, restructuring, police, state policing. Why Tinubu is not giving us constant electricity? He's not giving us security. On day one, Tinubu remove subsidy. There is nothing stopping Tinubu from saying that on day one, let us have the confab implementation. No. But because he can see now that Peter Obi is gaining ground, Peter Obi is winning the soul and heart of people. He wants to balkanize into the votes, the block of Peter Obi. Are we people not seeing it? I know. That is why I'm saying that Peter Obi, Atiku, stepping stone to presidency is for Atiku to just wholeheartedly agree that Peter Obi, I agree. And he has agreed. This is the best time to be alive. I cannot wait for 2027 to come. At least in my lifetime, I will see an Igbo man become the president. And I want to check something because I've always told my friends that when an Igbo man becomes the president, Omo, if that Igbo man no repair this country, na die on a deal. I always told my friends and even my Igbo reviewers and subscribers, I hope by 2027 Atiku still remains alive. I don't pray Atiku dies because I am very scared of Tinubu. Tinubu is a very, very, you have to be very scared of that man. A lot of things can happen between now and 2027. The pathway is Atiku for Obi, and the pathway for Obi is, for Atiku is Obi, but Obi must come first before Atiku. That's it. It's still the turn of the South. Tinubu knows this. Atiku knows this. The Nigerian people know this. This is why Tinubu is using the constitutional sentiment to try and sway people. This is why Tinubu is using things like restructuring to sentimentalize people, to buy people's conscience, to confuse people, to just, they are talking about local government autonomy in a federal system. You cannot have local government autonomy. Raji Fashola has said it, and you also watched that video. So a lot of things are going on, and Tinubu is the one implementing this agenda and strategy. The topic, the conversations in the recent time is not by chance. It is not a fluke. Tinubu knows that the North in their totality do not like him anymore. He don't enter one chance. But he knows that he can still balkanize that North. He wants to break that North with the constitutional amendment agenda. And also he knows that he will be able to attract people from the southeast, from the south, from the southwest, those that truly want Nigeria to have a real constitutional amendment. And I think his last joker for me will be the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Well, let's listen to the words of Peter Umba, then Fashola, then we'll continue our analysis.
We also know that people across the different parts of this country have been clamoring for one item or the other to be reviewed in the Constitution. We are also not excluded from that clamor as Tinubu. We also believe that some items in that Constitution should be looked into. We would be interested in, of course, making sure not just as people from Enugu, but people from the Southeast zone, that for equity and inclusivity, the Southeast should obviously be accorded additional states.
That will make sure that things will happen this 10th assembly in terms of things we can churn out entirely before and place it before Mr. President for his assent. We'll do all we can.
As it stands today, it is unrealistic to expect autonomy for local governments created by the Constitution. They were not meant to be autonomous. That is my view after a very, very close reading of certain provisions of the Constitution. Some of those provisions provide, for example, that the local government in its economic activities and all of that will have laws made for it by the State House of Assembly. If you look at the legal and ordinary meaning of the word autonomy, it suggests that you are acting independently without any outside influence and authority. And to that extent, a State House of Assembly making laws for what and how a local government can function is in itself an external influence that contradicts the idea of autonomy. The next thing, of course, is to look in the fourth schedule of the Constitution and look at all of the responsibilities that are assigned to local governments, such as the operation of slaughterhouses, abattoirs for animals, cemeteries, building of roads, advertising hoardings, primary schools, primary healthcare centers. All of those responsibilities are dependent on one item, land. And to the extent that the state government controls land, which affects how the local governments will carry out these functions, I didn't think that autonomy was intended. Now, if we now decide that we want autonomous local government, those are some of the things we have to free up, if that is our decision. So we must have an agreement, but as it stands, I don't think that autonomy was intended. What I think was intended was some sort of collaboration, some sort of supervision, some sort of oversight of the state over the local government. And that is inherent in what you will find in Section 162, which deals with the state joint local government account. And there is history behind the enactment of that section, because up till 1999, the local governments used to collect their monies directly from the Federation account under a process that I think was known as JAC, Joint Accounts and Allocation something. But in the advent of the democratic era, it was found out that there were so many of them, or not a few of them, who had defaulted in the very basic obligation of paying staff salaries, primary healthcare workers, primary school teachers, salaries and pensions, and there was a backlog of debt. And I met some of that debt when I became governor, and we were working then. And I think that is partly the history behind the creation of the state joint local government account, to ensure that there was some supervision. Whether the supervisors have now become as culpable as those they were supervising is another narrative entirely.
Ownership of Nigeria should be by every Nigerian. Ownership of Nigeria should be by every Nigerian. The mistake we are often making is to think that some people have been specially designated to fight for Nigeria. I meet people on the streets and they say, Prof sir, Chief sir, when next are you going to speak again on such and such an issue? I will ask the person, what have you yourself said? So every Nigerian should see this great country as an asset, and that our population of about 237 million people is not a curse. Rather, it is a blessing, because God has endowed us with so much human and natural resources, more than most countries in the world. Even the population, the differences in cultures, in religions, in ethnic nationalities, about 374 ethnic groups in Nigeria, according to Professor Onigu Otite. Nigerians should therefore see themselves as a coat of many colors. If you ask me, do you want a bifurcation or a dismemberment of Nigeria, or you want it to stay? I would say I prefer a united single entity called Nigeria, but which is driven by social justice, equity, good conscience, egalitarianism, and mutual respect one for another. I do not want anyone, for example, to disrespect me because I'm from the minority group, a minority within a minority. Because God did not make mistake in creating me to come from where I come from, Ijukwe, near Agenebode, Esako, East Local Government Area of Edo State, and I'm very proud of that. So I think the question of making Nigeria a better place should be the concern of every Nigerian.